So nice to meet everyone. My name is Bolu Akindele. Right now, I work as a writer and journalist. In between 2018 and 2019, I worked in Joy Inc. So Joy Inc. is this institution that's helping young people to learn how to live richer, fuller lives. And of course, which involves emotional mental health. I want our other panelists, starting from Dr. Zainab, to introduce themselves and the work that they do. And yeah, we'll kick off. So off to you, Dr. Zainab.
My name is Zainab Imam. I'm a medical doctor and I'm a psychiatrist. I specialize in the care of women, especially those who are pregnant or those who have just had babies. So I'm a perinatal psychiatrist and I currently work in the Women's Wellbeing Clinic at Sidra Medicine in the state of Qatar, in Doha. Yeah. And thank you for inviting me.
Welcome. Nice to have you, Ma.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Olivia. I'm in Yaoundé, Cameroon, and I have nothing related really to health. I'm a project manager, and I've been working with startups and projects, managing projects for the last 10 years, well, 11 years, working with close to 1,000 startups here in Cameroon and in the region. And so, yeah, I'm essentially a project manager. So aside from that, anything related to health is perhaps more the other hat that I have working in ministry, right? As a Christian, working with ministry with over 100 women dealing with different health issues. All right, but I'm not a health professional.
Ike just joined it.
I totally understand that. I just added Dr. Ania now.
Okay.
She'll appear on the panel anytime soon.
All right.
It looks like he's really tired.
I am.
I can imagine. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, Dr. Aya, finally. Nice to have you here. I'm so excited.
I've been on call since yesterday.
Oh dear.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time. So Dr.
But you're breaking
Dr.
up.
Zainab, and I'm breaking up.
But
can everyone hear me clearly?
I can't hear you.
Oh, we can hear.
Okay, so I think the problem is with Dr. Anya's internet, because Dr. Zainab can hear me very well.
But we can hear
as well. Very well.
Okay, so if everyone can hear me,
okay,
then
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So Dr. Anya, our other two panelists just introduced themselves before you came in.
Okay.
So before we just dive right into all the questions, we want you to do an introduction of you and the work that you do.
My name is Ike. I'm a Nigerian public health doctor and I'm a writer. I'm co-founder of Nigeria Health Watch and EpiAfrique. Nigeria Health Watch is a health advocacy platform to facilitate change in the Nigeria health sector. And EpiAfrique is a health consulting firm that aims to bring together African expertise together with global standards in delivery. So we aim to use the dual perspective we have as people who have lived outside the continent and worked in global health, but also have a thorough understanding of the local context.
We can't hear Bolu.
Dr. Anya, yeah. Mute. Thank you so much, Dr. Anya. So nice to have everyone here. We spent a lot of time trying to get in, so I'll just get right to the questions. I think I want to start at the very beginning, which is what is the state of emotional health in Nigeria at the moment? And this is for Dr. Anya and Dr. Zainab, which is, when we talk about emotional health, First of all, what are we talking about? And then what is the state of emotional health in Nigeria at the moment?
Okay.
I'll let the psychiatrist start.
Okay. I guess when you're saying emotional health, you are referring to mental health as well. And it's a state of well-being. I think that would be the best way to see it. Well-being, not just mentally or emotionally, but also incorporates physical, social, spiritual, and the ability for a person to feel included in the society and able to participate and contribute to the society that they live in. So emotional health is all encompassing. It covers every aspect of that person's life.
Ania?
Right. I mean, I've lost it. To be honest, I'm not sure that the distinction between physical and spiritual and emotional and all the different kinds of mental health are useful, in the sense that I think that's part of what helps people divide up health, as if they are different bits. Because actually, as Dr. Imam has said, I think those of us, many people, even those who are not in medicine, will remember the WHO definition of health, the World Health Organization definition. And that covers a whole range of, it's spiritual, it's social, it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional. And so I think, I think that would be my starting point, because I think that division between emotional health and physical health is part of what pushes emotional health to, if you like, a second class place in many societies, including in Nigeria. So I think, I would like to think of health where you're fully balanced physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually and emotionally. And in that aspect, I would think it is the ability to know and control and manage your emotions and deal with them as we go through all the challenges and changes, positive and negative, that we encounter in life.
And there's that saying that there's no health without mental health. So everything is not as distinct as people make it. Everything kind of weaves into each other.
That's such a brilliant intro. This year has been a different year, right? We've had to deal with like lots of things. There's been the pandemic. There's been several protests around the world. Black Lives Matter, EndSARS. We had a rape epidemic in Nigeria at some point, I think around June. What do you think would be the both short-term and long-term emotional effect of all these things that have happened this year? Dr. Ania.
I think it's important to stress here that I'm a public health physician and not a mental health or emotional health expert. But also, I'm quite passionate about us taking care of our whole health, and so I think you don't need to be an expert or even a doctor. I think any human being that's been living through this year will have no doubt that the impact it's having on people, and it will continue to have, is quite large. It's quite significant. I was just thinking just before I logged on here that, I haven't seen my parents for a year. That's a long, time in our relationship that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people, in similar positions. People have lost, family members and not even been able to grieve properly.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say, there's the turbulence of what's been happening in society.
Mm.
So I think it's a very, very difficult time. And what I always say to people at this time is that, I've been saying it since March, and I continue to say it, please just give everyone extra rope.
Mm.
Whether it's your partner, whether it's your employer, whether it's you know, someone you're passing on the street and maybe they drive in a particular way or they behave towards you. I think people are carrying a lot, you know, and sometimes we don't even realize what we are carrying. I mean, I feel as if I've coped quite well, but I also know that I've had these sudden, you know, tears just spring to my eyes at the oddest thing. You know, it's not something that's ever happened to me before. And so I know that somehow it's linked, you know, to this situation. But, you know, and I think actually that's a good example of us as Nigerians, because for me, outwardly, if you ask me, I would say, oh, you know, lockdown's not been too bad. But then there's that, you know, swinging and labile emotion that I'm also witnessing, and I know that they're linked. So I think, you know, there's going to be such a large need for, you know, support and people being able to talk about and deal with all of the emotions that are pent up. And, you know, we can't even talk about a difference because all this stuff is still going on. You know, it's not as if it's, okay, it's finished and now we're into recovery. You know, we're dealing with it and then we're trying to recover at the same time.
Dr. Zainab, it's very important, you know, the thing that he has mentioned about how that we're still even dealing with this thing. And from what we know about, you know, mental health in Nigeria, we know that we don't even have as much psychiatrists to deal with the problem that we currently have. And we now have a problem that's developing at the moment. What do you think we can do to avoid a crisis that is waiting for us ahead in the future or something?
I guess what can be done, I would say, is three-pronged in a way. The first thing is the individual themselves. What can they do to know to continue to keep positive or not allow what is going on affect them beyond what they can cope with? The first is, although there's supposed to be a lockdown, I know it's not been well adhered to in Nigeria, but we can as well, you know, try to continue to connect with each other and then talk to people. Don't keep things to yourself. If you're not feeling very strong emotionally, make sure you reach out and let somebody know. And that also means that as a society, as an individual, we also need to break down the taboos that surround speaking about the way you feel emotionally. So that individual needs to learn to just take it seriously and speak out, let somebody help. There's so much that we within a family can actually do, or within a small community can do to help each other. In Nigeria, there's a dearth of specialist medical personnel. I think there is one psychiatric per million or thereabout. It should be more.
I don't know the exact figures, but yes,
per million population. So we have only, I think, about 200 to 250 fully trained psychiatrists in Nigeria currently. So there is not enough personnel. So, of course, long term, government or policymakers needs to think about, you know, training and improving access, improving funding to mental health. But there's so much that the individual and the community around them can do without necessarily, you know, needing a trained professional per se. You know, the normal TLC, the listening here, the validating of the thing that somebody is telling you. So if somebody is telling you that actually I'm really struggling today, don't just, you know, don't listen. And that may just be there to help the person onboarding. And those things can do well. The other thing that I know help is, you know, make sure you eat well, you sleep well, avoid all the negative news if you can, exercise to boost your immunity, and you know, strengthen yourself as a person. But and use the opportunity of the, you know, slowing down to, you know, learn new things, read, occupy your mind with positive things. So all those are things that can then help us as individuals prevent things from escalating. And but invariably there's going to be some, you know, problems that will come out of all this. And I hope as a society we're preparing ourselves for it. Yeah.
So Olivia, you're very active in the corporate space. And one of the things that Dr. Anya said was that, you need to be patient with, employees. But you have things that need to be done. You have deadlines, you have clients that are demanding work, and then you have a workforce that's saying that, they're stressed emotionally. And like, but we have things that need to be done.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with a problem like that?
Well, 2020 has been particular, right? And as the doctor said, we have to extend so much more mercy to each other. And just yesterday, we were speaking about the end of year assessment, right? Performance assessment. I was having that discussion with a few people, and one thing I learned during this year is essentially you can't really measure so much on the metrics, because I mean practically half of the year was not knowing where are we going, what is happening. So on one hand, the people, whether it's the customers, the clients, or in my case, since I work a lot more with projects, the stakeholders, like the grant donors, the donors of project of funds, they were more understanding, and so you also have to pass that mercy in quote unquote to your collaborators and to your staff. And so um, the advice we've been hearing more for because I'm a project manager, for as you manage projects and all that, trying to meet the deadlines exactly and get results, is to extend a lot of mercy towards people, a lot of empathy, and to acknowledge the effort that they're making in the midst of all this, craziness and change, and to acknowledge, kind of like what Dr. Zainab said, acknowledge the emotions, acknowledge the situations, at home, having to handle your parents at the same time, having to handle work. So things have not been as performant, obviously, as last year. And then the economy also kind of went crazy. So we've used a lot of mercy, a lot of grace, as we say in biblical terms, towards that, but trying also to motivate and encourage in the midst of that to at least produce something for the year. So that's where I've been more positioned with the different projects and collaborators I've been working with.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question for that actually, which is, what do you do when it involves money? So many companies, for instance, they make as much money as the
Mm-hmm.
projected that they will make in 2020, which means
Mm-hmm.
that they'll probably not be able to pay as much salaries,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably needed to cut um, staff that are not as productive as the
Mm-hmm.
others. How do
Mm-hmm.
you deal with a challenge like that?
Well, that's a like 'cause that's a seriously real challenge, right? Because in my case, 2020, I knew, we'll be at the next level and we'll double our sales, and we'll get more customers. I really, I knew it, and I was ready. I had the energy for it. And then from March till July, it's so that we pivoted and we did a lot of the services that were more online, like digital services, like digital classes, right? In addition to the other things we were doing. And that pretty much worked well in our case. But then I had to cut some staff that were not really necessary during that time. But then do it in a empathetic way, because you really can't carry that bill. You really can't. Money is not coming in, and you can't. But staying in touch with your staff on trying to see how they're going through, trying your best to also give them a share of the cake wherever you're taking it. And then things started picking up a little bit better, especially for us here in Africa, right? I'm sure Nigeria, Cameroon, where I am, with the COVID-19 threat not being that crazy, by June, July, things started picking up again. And, some of those time we had to call them back, but slowly, because you don't know how the wave will go up and down. And so I do understand, I have my brother who was who was laid off from his job, and he was very frustrated and bitter and angry. And I do understand that, but I try also to make him understand the position of his employer, because for 3 months things are frozen. You can't afford it, to be paying people when you're not getting customers, right? And so I think it was really a dance. It was really an adjustment. And even for employers, I guess it was, everyone is really trying to figure it out. So I don't have the secret recipe, but it's really been a learning curve, a learning process. And I think we need a lot of empathy, and use that our African culture of checking on each other. How are you? How are you handling it? How, if you can help unofficially, even if it's not as a salary, as a fixed salary, but if you can help in other ways, with encouragement, with whenever it's fine with you, you can help. I think it's good to preserve that Africanity, our humanity, in that sense, business wise, corporate wise, during these times.
Thank you so much. Dr. Anya,
Thank you
you're
very much.
also a writer. And many people have always talked about how that language often helps to say the things that we feel but don't know how to. And you're somebody who uses language to tell stories. So how can we use storytelling, writing, to change the way that we perceive emotional health, and sort of empower people to be able to name the things that they're going through? You're muted.
You're muted.
That's the catchphrase of 2020. You're muted. Unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
it's yourself.
Yes. Sorry about that. So I think, I think there are many ways in which language can help, both in terms of telling the stories in a way that people can engage with and share, the feelings of the person who is going through that thing, or make you reflect on, why, empathy. I mean, think about some of the greatest writing, they are able to make you sympathize or empathize sometimes the characters that ordinarily you wouldn't empathize with, or you wouldn't feel you had anything in common with. And I think that's, the beauty of writing and, good writing and language. I'm not a big fan of agenda writing. So writing because you want to write about making emotional health more well known. What I think is that we should tell the real stories of what is really happening, to people. And, not necessarily starting out with, I want this to change how Nigerians think about emotional health, but starting out with, I want to tell a story of, a young woman who had a baby and experienced postnatal depression. Because I've seen it, or I've known it, or I've experienced it myself, and I want to talk about what it feels like. Or a young man who's having suicidal thoughts. Just being able to tell those stories in a way that people can then either see themselves in that person, or be able to at least say, okay, this isn't me, but I can see what this person is going through, and I can see why it's important to talk about these things.
Just to corroborate that, there's Jibril Abdul Malik. I don't know if you've read any of his writings. He's a Nigerian psychiatrist who does a series, I think, on This Day,
right,
weekly, and that is exactly what he does. He just tells stories.
Yeah.
And he does this in such a simple, lovely, easily understood way of, talking about mental health. Asido Foundation. Yeah.
I'd also like
then
to
my
add
next
something.
Yeah. No,
Sorry.
continue.
I just want to add something quickly on the corporate thing, and and staff and employees and employees. I've always felt, and that's linked to emotional health, I've always felt that part of the issue is that people need to value their employees, need to recognize that probably the most important asset you have in an organization is your employees. And if you look after them, then they'll help, look after your customers and your clients and your business. And when we talk about facing challenging times, if you genuinely accept that you and your employees are all in it together, then you all try to figure out a solution together. It's not like you said, no money is coming in. Here, I need to pay your salaries. How do we do it? They might come up with creative ideas, or they might say, okay, let's take, and I've heard stories of where this has happened, where they said, right, we'll take, 40% of our salaries.
Yeah.
And then we look at, new businesses that we can start or new things, And so I think it's that starting point of everyone says they value their employees, but often the reality isn't that they do. And I think when you genuinely do, and when you don't see yourself as the boss dictating what happens, but you actually, try to engage and understand, I'm not saying your employees should be your best friends. No, it's still a professional relationship, but, treat them as human beings who, you have an interest in their development, in their growth. And then you reap the benefits. And I can testify to that, having started 2 organizations that, I hope the employees would agree. We've tried to implement some of this. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Dr. Zainab, one of the things that we saw a lot this year was how people formed communities on social media. That, social media sort of played like a big role in the way that people engage with each other this year. Do you think that since we already have a problem of, we don't have enough therapists, we don't have enough psychiatrists, that social media can play a huge role in helping people become emotionally healthy, emotionally stable, just find, love and all of that?
Well, social media is huge. It has both negatives and positives. And I think we have to be very careful in putting an umbrella, thing out there about social media improving emotional health. So one needs to tread very carefully. So you have to learn to remove the shaft from the grain and actually engage in it in only positive manner, because you can also easily get carried away. People get addicted. And there is something about social media in that you can, it can be deceptive as well. So you see a lot of people only, take a snapshot of something that is good. And you can invariably think every other person is coping and you are the only one suffering. So that's one. But so anything you see on social media, you still have to take it with a pinch of salt. But there are some communities that are really doing a lot of great jobs. So I'm in some groups. Actually, after this talk, almost immediately after, I'm giving a pep talk to a group of nursing mothers talking about perinatal health. I've just sent them an email to say that I may be coming late because we started this a bit late. Yeah. So, but that's a social group as well. They are using the social media platform, and people have reached out to me from that group to say, look, this is how I'm feeling. What can I do about it? And now, signpost them appropriately to where they need to seek the right kind of help. And that's a Nigerian group. So there are many lovely ways in which we can. One example will also be, I know there's an ADHD group on Facebook, very large group, where people come and ask, have you felt this way? Have you felt that way? And people say, actually, yes, it's true. This is something that you can do. This is where I went. There's another group that's a UK group for UK doctors. And at the initial, time of the pandemic, one of the GPs started it. And I'm one of the moderators on that particular platform. And within a month, we had more than 100,000, NHS workers. And people were just very confused, but at least they knew that that is an avenue where they can get right information regarding the COVID, regarding what is going on in the country and around the world. And so social media, one has to kind of use it. It can be stress relieving. You can use it to get support. You can use it to learn a lot. You can use it to reach out to people, but you also need to be very careful not to let it overwhelm you, not to allow all the negative news or arguments, be a part, either you being a part of it or them affecting you in any negative way. Yeah, that's yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Olivia, we're back to the workspace, right? How can we foster these social groups that Dr. Zainab has talked about? How can we foster these social groups in the workplace? How can we enforce vulnerability in those kind of spaces without people crossing each other's boundaries? Because it's a thing that happens that, when we say that this space is open, you can be vulnerable as much as you want, people tend to cross each other's boundaries. So how do we do that?
I guess more creating safe spaces, right? And you mean creating a safe space, right? What I love, what happened in 2020 is that people were really vulnerable, right? And it became even popular to be vulnerable and to be real, right? Especially working from home. I started working from home. I have twins and I have a toddler. So while I'll be maybe teaching or working on a project on Zoom, they'll hear "Mama, Mama" in the background. Well, today they're not there because I send them to their grandma's house. And but I'll say, hey, well, that's
the
reality. Exactly, this is where I am. And so I think being in real life kind of cases, it also opens the room for the others. And as I said, when you want mercy, in my case, I need mercy. I need people to be understanding and all that with me. So you definitely are going to extend that same kind of mercy and understanding towards others. And also, when everyone was trying to manage how are we going through this, and having those, especially when you're at the manager or upper level, maybe a hierarchical role, when you are vulnerable and when you are open, it creates room for the others also to be open and vulnerable in those kind of cases.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There was
It looks like you have a lot to say. Oh, sorry.
No, I mean, Olivia is just hitting the nail on the head. I think if you're the leader, if you're a manager, and you're open about your vulnerability, like you said, showing I'm struggling at home as well. I'm not this super person who has got it all sorted. Then that encourages the staff, to and the people who work with you to be open as well. And I think in Nigeria, it's particularly important where, we've often had this myth and image of the big man and the big woman, who all the money comes into their hands and they have everything sorted. And nobody has, nobody. And so being able to say, this is the reality. And I'm a big believer in transparency, in workplaces. This is what we are earning. This is what income we've got. This is what we're spending. This is the profit. So there's no special money bag hidden somewhere where I'll go and bring extra. This is it. And me too, I'm struggling. I've got elderly family relatives. I need to that kind of thing helps people. They see you genuinely talking like that and sharing those things, then they are more likely to. And I think in Nigeria, it's important to actually push people. I mean, I'll give an example. When we started Nigeria Health Watch and EpiAfric, we wanted a very flat, non-hierarchical team so that people could talk freely, and we had WhatsApp and all that, where people, everybody could just chip in what they thought. But I found that you had to actually push people to use those channels because they were just used to working in places where if they said something, they would be shut down. And the flip side was I had to also learn some things, for instance, that when perhaps I wanted a certain decision to go a certain way, but I had thrown it open to people, I had to swallow my
Yep.
pride and anger and go with what, if you said this is what, this is what it is. And, because I was conscious that if I reacted wrongly, they would close up again. Because they'll say, yes, the time he's always saying, tell us the truth, tell us the truth. When I told the truth, he got angry. So I think those are some of the things that, especially in relation to emotional health, that help in the workplace. Being in that kind of open and trusting place where you can share your vulnerability.
Yeah.
I no longer am interested in leaders who are superman or superwoman. The people I really respect are the powerful people who are able to share the places where they have fallen,
Yeah.
the places where they have failed, and how they are picking themselves up.
Yeah.
Because for me, that is reality, that is life.
Yeah.
The person who tells you I wake up, I sleep only 4 hours a day and I run 1,500 kilometers and blah, blah, sorry, I'm not interested. Yeah.
I agree with AK 100% on that.
Okay. I
And
thought you had something.
yeah, I was just going to pick on some of this. You said enforce people being vulnerable. It's not something you can actually enforce. You can make it available, but you can't enforce it. You can invite people into it. So that was one thing I was going to pick on when you said after your talk. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So Dr. Ania, when you were talking about, writing, you sort of hinted on this, but I want you to like elaborate on it. So, and I'm a journalist, and in the past like 2 years, we've sort of seen this increased reporting about, mental health, emotional health, what the states of things are exactly. What do you think are the current gaps in terms of storytelling that we haven't, gotten yet when we're talking about like emotional health?
Well, I always think in relation to writing in Nigeria, we haven't even scratched the surface at all. Not just in relation to emotional health, just in relation to everything. If you think about the experiences you have on a daily basis as a Nigerian, from just waking up, there's already hearing your neighbor shouting at the driver. Those things haven't been captured, or you're shouting at the house help, or, the driver's washing the car and gossiping about what's going on. These things, I've not seen them written about. And sometimes, I think it was a writer called Edmund White who, in one of his blurbs for Chimamanda Adichie's one of her novels, said something like, I'm really envious of this young woman with so many stories still untold in her country. And I think, it's true, because when you think of the West, what do you want to write about in the West that someone hasn't done before? It's very challenging. But in Nigeria, like, there are so many stories of going back to your village. They're just endless stories. Well, from the day, just think about it, from the day you wake up, from the time you wake up each day, and all the people and situations you encounter in Nigeria till the day till the time you go to bed, and ask yourself, how much of that have I seen in literature? And so I think, certainly in relation to emotional health, we need to develop that more. I'm quite encouraged by what I see among the younger generation in terms of a lot of openness and willingness to, to engage with these things, even like during the NSAS protests, conscious that they needed to protect their mental and emotional health. Things like Mentally Aware Nigeria and what they're doing using a network of volunteers. So I'm quite hopeful that it's no longer something where it's something shameful or hidden to talk about the fact that you're having emotional health challenges. We talk about physical health all the time. Why can't we? You don't hide the fact you have a headache. And on that subject, there's something very powerful someone told me when I was struggling with mental health. I was going through a very difficult time at work about 7 years ago. And, I went to see a therapist. And one of the things she said to me was, no, I'd heard someone say this at a conference. They said, when you have a headache, You don't go to see a doctor. You go to the pharmacy and buy paracetamol. What is the mental health equivalent, the emotional health equivalent of that? And those things exist. There are things you can do if you feel low, if you have small problems. But I was a doctor of many years as a consultant, and I didn't know any of those things. And that's what I'm now quite keen that more people know about. Just the fact that if you start feeling down, you can just step out and go for a walk, or call a friend who you haven't spoken to for a long time, or just take down a novel, whatever it is that lifts you. And I didn't know that before.
Yeah. There's the five ways to well-being.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've kind of touched on them, and he's touched on them as well.
Okay.
So
I wanted you to talk about it.
Yeah.
I wanted you to take that point and talk about, what do you think is first aid that we can do when we or someone that we know is going through an emotionally challenging time?
Connecting with other people, with loved ones, with people that you know cares about you, talking to them, letting them know what you're going through, and for that other person to listen and validate your feeling and support you empathically. Learning, lifelong learning, opening your mind to new experiences, traveling, learning a new recipe. That's something we can do in lockdown from social media. There's this tasty app, Facebook group. They're always showing very short 5 minutes, 10 minutes thing that you can quickly do and learn. Learning how to knit. So we use the time to do something, continuously learning and reading and not letting your mind be fallow. Charity, giving to others, volunteering, helping others, because by helping other people, you're also helping yourself. When you make other person happy, you also make yourself happy. But whenever I say about charity, about giving, and that could just be a smile, that could be listening to another person, that could just be giving good advice. Whenever I say charity, I also say charity begins at home. So what do you do to yourself to replenish yourself so that you're not just giving and giving, you're taking time to fill up that vessel of yours so that you have more to give. And the thing you can do for yourself is ensuring that, you're not just, life is not just an hamster wheel. It's not just 9 to 5, that you have time to wind down and rest. Sleep is absolutely essential. Carrying out, 8 hours of sleep opportunity in a day, it's essential for our mental health. Ensuring that we're drinking enough fluid and not coffee or alcohol, but, just water. It's surprising how much that can impact on our focus, on our concentration, on our ability to make clearer decisions. Eating healthily, exercising, those are the kind of charity that you give to yourself, because they will keep you and maintain your well-being. Then the last thing, which is exercise, is moving. So I've talked about, learning new things, connecting to people, giving, moving, but also taking notice. So taking time to appreciate what is around you, is all not, even the pandemic is all not negative. There's so much positive that's come out of it. So take notice of the positives around you. Be grateful for what you have, for what's, the positives and even the negatives and the lessons you're learning from it, and just take life. Don't take life too seriously. Yeah. So those are the 5 main ways that the research has shown will, if you engage in them, will keep you. But the most important one is the quality of the connections and your relationships. The quality of the relationships that you have. Yeah.
Thank you. We have just a few minutes left, and I have one very important question, because it was something that came up in conversation today, and this is for Dr. Zainab and Dr. Ania, which is, many people are dealing with PTSD of like the past few months. A friend was talking about dealing with nightmares about being accosted by SARS. I've had like 3 different dreams of being accosted by SARS between October and now. Many people witnessed the killings
Okay.
at Lekki and are still scarred by it. What can we do? Especially because many people cannot access their loved ones because there's a pandemic and everything. They're probably stuck somewhere. But what can we do now, as human beings, as friends, as family members, to solve that problem?
And that's mine, right?
Yeah, you and Dr.
Yes.
Anya, and then we wrap up the session.
Okay. With the PTSD symptoms, it depends on the severity. If it is mild, just ensuring that you're trying hard, you put things in place to ensure that you have as good enough sleep as possible can help. So make sure you wind down, make sure it's very dark and it's as cool as it can be, and that your bedding is comfortable. Also focusing your mind on positives before you sleep. And one simple way of doing that is if somebody can read and write. So keeping a gratitude journal. So as part of your sleep routine, spare about 10-15 minutes to think about that day and only write the things that were positive and that you're grateful for about that day, because that then focuses your mind on positives before you sleep. Because usually dreams and nightmares are a kind of condensation of what our mind have been going through during the day. So if you can kind of allow our mind to focus on positives, then that can help us be a bit more positive before we sleep. And writing is a good way of helping your mind focus. So if you pick to write just about the grateful things, then your mind will focus on positive. And if you do that consistently, then it's very likely that during the day you'll be on the lookout without even realizing it for the positives of that day. So you start focusing more on the positive rather than the negatives, if you know you are going to have to write about it at night before you sleep. Yeah. So that's one simple thing that one can do. And then breathing exercise and relaxation exercise. So slow breathing in and slow breathing out. They can help reduce the stress hormones in our system and help us calm down. Yeah. And those are two things that
Dr. Anya.
everybody can do at home.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo, I mean, obviously, Dr. Imam is the expert here. But I would say also, give yourself time, recognize that, yeah, you will have nightmares and that's part of the experience. But there will be a time when they will stop. Try to talk to people about it. Yes, you may not be able to physically be with people, but, as Dr. Imam and Olivia have said, there have been positives as well. So if I look at my own family, for instance, we now do a weekly Zoom meeting, the whole extended family, across, which we never used to do face to face pre-pandemic is now. So, that's one way of dealing. And I'm a big believer in Google. Just as you asked that question, I just Googled on my phone, post-traumatic stress disorder self-help. And it took me straight to a website, Mind,
Okay.
a UK-based charity. And it lists things, I can put the link in chat now, I think I will. But these are things that you can just do yourself, whether there's a specialist or there's no specialist. And so I think, again, that's one of the positives of the internet, while you have the negatives, but also you have all these resources that exist. And yeah, I think but I think it's important to give yourself time to know that, just like if you break your leg, you're not going to expect to be walking or dancing or running the next day. So I just think we need to stop this division between physical health and emotional health. And, we need to think about it in the same kind of way. And then that will make things a bit easier, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Olivia, so you raised your hand. I wanted to be
Yes.
sure that you do want to say something.
Wasp. It's a wasp.
Okay.
Around.
Yeah, thank you. everyone. This has been like such an enlightening conversation, and I have like lots of things that I'm probably like going to start from today, like the gratitude journaling that you mentioned, and the breathing practices and all of that. I'm just so grateful that we had this conversation. Thank you everyone for coming around. Enjoy the rest
Can I
of
ask a
your.
question? Because we have two doctors there, so
Okay, great.
any question, a last minute question. So, okay, this advice is they're so great, they're so excellent, and as I said, I'm seeing how I'm going to share it to. As I said, there's a group of women, about 100 of us, Christian women, and encouraging each other during this time. But I've noticed that more and more, we have people who they know what they need to do, so they might know all the 5 things of wellness, but when you're in that trap, you're not able to bootstrap yourself, as you say, as you say. So, what would be your advice for that when you're facing with someone who knows, yes, I need to walk, I need to eat healthy, I need to be drinking water, I need to be resting more. I just can't. I'm just tired. I just, how do you manage that? How do you?
Talk to someone about what you're going through so that you maybe get a buddy, somebody to remind you and kind of help you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That would be the quick thing that I can think of. If you find that all the things that you know what you need to do, but you're not doing them to help yourself,
Mhm.
then you want to reach out to someone that can
Help you to help
like
yourself.
buddy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Mhm.
Yeah. So I've put the mind thing about post-traumatic stress
Yeah.
in the chat. But to answer your question very quickly, I think it's also important to understand that emotional health is not a destination. It's a journey with ups and downs. So when you're in that place, if your friends, if your supporters, just be with them. Just talk to them. Yeah, it's fine. You're not eating healthy. You're not doing all the things. You're not taking your medication. That's fine. I'm here. We are here.
Okay.
And the time will come when you will start again.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Okay, that's very good. Thank
I guess it's important if we haven't heard from somebody that we are close to or somebody that we know,
Yeah.
reach out, find out how they are doing. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, very
So that
good.
you know that somebody's at least thinking about them and they're not that alone.
I have a friend with depression. Sometimes I will email for 2 weeks and not get a reply.
Wow.
But I continue.
Yeah.
Say, good morning, how are you? And I know, I've learned that that's important.
Yeah, reaching out. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's difficult when you think you're throwing things into a void.
Exactly.
But I just see that that's my role as a friend. That's what I have to do.
Yes.
Just keep at it, and they will recognize it when things are better.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really
Thank you,
enjoyed
Bolu.
doing this. Have a fantastic evening, everyone.
You.
Bye.